Beyond Earth's border, the stars went silent and the galaxy trembled. The stars above Earth had always spoken in whispers. For generations, humans had built machines that listened to the skies. Every day brought signals. Trading codes from alien fleets, navigation beacons from colonies far away, and sometimes even the chaotic chatter of species that barely understood what humanity was. The galaxy was alive with sound, endless voices crossing the void. Yet on one cold night that sound died. It began quietly, almost unnoticed. A technician at a listening post on the edge of the solar system noticed his monitors had gone silent. At first he believed it was a malfunction, another error from outdated equipment. But when he checked again, he saw the same silence stretching across every frequency. The galaxy, once noisy, had become empty. Messages were sent back to Earth, and soon the story spread among scientists and leaders. Across hundreds of years, humanity had never seen the stars go quiet like this. No empire, no fleet, no wandering trader had ever been completely silent. There was always something, an echo, a beacon, a faint whisper of technology traveling through the dark. But now there was nothing. Earth's leaders gathered, unsettled. They were not the most powerful force in the galaxy. Far older empires existed. Giant insectoid dynasties, reptilian warlords, and machine collectives that ruled thousands of systems. But they too were gone. Their voices had vanished at the same time, as if someone had reached across the universe and pressed a single finger to every mouth. The silence grew heavier each day. Deep space explorers reported abandoned stations floating without power. Vast fleets of alien ships drifted like dead metal, their crews missing. Entire planets had stopped responding, their lights extinguished as if swallowed by a great hand. And then, a single message arrived. It came from a human scout ship operating beyond Earth's border. The message was broken, filled with static and fear. But one line was clear enough to freeze the blood of everyone who heard it. The stars are not empty. They are listening. After that, the transmission ended and the scout ship never replied again. The people of Earth did not sleep easily after that. The ordinary citizens wondered if war had begun, if some weapon had been used to silence entire civilizations. Soldiers and strategists feared an invasion, but there was nothing to see. No enemy fleets, no armies, not even debris of battle. Just silence. On the edge of Earth's borders, fear grew among the exploration crews. Some captains refused to fly beyond the safe zones. Others disappeared entirely, their ships never returning. It seemed the closer one came to the outer rim of the galaxy, the stronger the silence pressed. One young officer, stationed aboard the listening post named Horizon, felt the weight of this silence more than most. His name was Marcus Hale, and he had spent his life studying signals. He was trained to find patterns where others saw only noise. But now all he saw was emptiness, and in that emptiness he began to notice strange distortions. At first they were small, tiny dips in background radiation, shadows that seemed too perfect. But then they grew into repeating pulses. They were not natural. They were not random. They were like footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the dark. Marcus reported his findings to Earth Command, but most dismissed it as stress. They told him silence could play tricks on the mind. Yet he could not ignore the sense that something was out there, moving closer, hiding in the dark and watching. One night, while scanning the horizon of stars, Marcus received a faint signal. It was so weak it almost slipped past him. A single trembling note hidden in the silence. He strengthened the reception and the words appeared across his screen. They are gone. We are next. It was not from a human ship. The encryption belonged to an alien empire known as the Vedras, a proud reptilian species that had ruled 100 systems for centuries. But their voice was filled with terror, and the signal cut off before any more could be learned. By now, whispers spread across Earth. Some believed a weapon had been unleashed, one that only humans had not yet faced. Others said the galaxy itself was punishing the old rulers, and that humanity was being spared for reasons unknown. Fear gave birth to wild stories, and none of them ended with hope. Yet Marcus Hale knew something different. He felt the silence was not emptiness but intention. It was too precise, too total to be an accident. The stars had not gone quiet because life had ended. They had gone quiet because something wanted them silent. And deep inside he felt the truth. Whatever it was not finished. The silence of the galaxy did not stay hidden for long. Soon, Exploration ships returning from the rim brought reports of entire empires gone missing. Fleets that once filled the void with blazing engines were now drifting, powerless, abandoned like hollow shells. It was not destruction that people saw, no broken wrecks, no battlefield scars, but fleets frozen in the dark, their crews nowhere to be found. The first confirmed sighting came from a civilian cargo vessel named Aurora's Path. Its crew stumbled upon a vast armada of the Drain Collective, ships that had been feared across the stars for centuries. Thousands of war cruisers floated silently, their weapons cold, their lights dark. The humans who explored them reported eerie emptiness inside. No bodies, no signs of struggle, only the feeling that everyone had stepped away all at once. Word spread like wildfire across Earth. The alien powers that had once looked down on humanity, the rulers who had treated humans as a minor species, were simply gone. The insectoid empires, the reptilian warlords, the machine dynasties, all of them had fallen quiet. In the past, Earth had feared them. Now there was nothing left to fear, and that was even more terrifying. Captain Elias Rourke, a man who had served for decades in the United Earth Fleet, found himself staring at endless reports. He had fought against alien fleets before. He had studied their tactics, their strength, their arrogance. But now those same enemies had turned into silent shadows. He whispered to his crew, "The galaxy is not dead. It is holding its breath." As humans pushed farther into the void, they noticed something stranger. Planets once filled with life now glowed dimly from orbit. Cities that had stretched across continents were lifeless, lights extinguished, towers abandoned, and yet there was no destruction, no bombings, no craters. It was as if the inhabitants had all heard a silent command and obeyed. One explorer, a young woman named Kira Valen, described it best when she stood on the surface of a once thriving alien world. "It feels," she said, "like they are hiding from something that is still here." Her words were broadcast back to Earth, and soon, fear took root among the people. Scientists argued endlessly. Some believed a weapon had been unleashed, one that could erase civilizations without a trace. Others thought it was a plague, spreading faster than any known disease. But Marcus Hale, still watching signals from the Horizon station, continued to see the patterns in the silence. He knew it was not random. Something was shaping it. Then came the most chilling discovery. A patrol near the Vedras border, the same species whose broken signal had reached Marcus, found their homeworld. It was dark, its ocean still, its cities frozen in time, but scattered across the planet were massive carvings, symbols dug into stone so large they could be seen from orbit. They were not natural, and they were not Vedras work. They were warnings. The symbols repeated a single idea: silence is survival. Back on Earth, panic grew. Some believed humanity was next. Others believed they had been spared for a reason. Prophets rose in the streets shouting that humans were chosen, that the silence was a sign. Soldiers sharpened their weapons, expecting war. Children woke screaming from dreams of voices whispering in the dark. Captain Rourke's fleet was sent to investigate deeper into the void. As his ships crossed into the abandoned zones, his crew grew restless. Every night they reported hearing faint noises in the comm systems, soft whispers that were not static. Engineers swore they saw shapes moving between the stars, shadows sliding across the glass. Rourke himself heard it too. Low voices that stopped the moment anyone tried to record them. And then came the night when one of his ships, the Resolute, disappeared without a trace. It had been flying formation, steady and secure, and then it was simply gone. No explosion, no distress call, just silence. Rourke gathered his officers and spoke in a voice heavy with fear. "We are not explorers anymore. We are being hunted." Across Earth's borders, more fleets vanished. Each loss was quiet, precise, leaving no wreckage behind. It was as if the stars themselves were swallowing them whole. Marcus Hale, still studying the transmissions, began to understand the truth. The silence was not death. It was a weapon of fear. It was a warning from something so powerful that empires obeyed without question. And humanity, reckless and stubborn, was the only one still moving freely into the dark. The galaxy had gone silent because the galaxy was afraid. And now the question remained: why was humanity not trembling too? The silence had already shaken the galaxy, but what came next turned fear into something far darker. Humanity's fleets continued to push deeper into abandoned space. unable to resist the call of mystery. Every alien empire had vanished, yet the void did not feel empty. It felt heavy, as if the stars themselves were hiding something too large to be seen. Captain Elias Rourke's fleet had been reduced after the loss of the Resolute. His men whispered in the corridors, refusing to speak loudly, as if afraid that their voices might attract something in the dark. But Rourke was stubborn. He had seen too much war to bow to fear. When his officers begged him to retreat, he only said, "If we turn back now, we die in ignorance. I would rather face the truth, no matter how black it is." So his fleet continued on. Weeks later, on the edge of a dying star system, they found it. It was not a planet, not a ship, not anything that could be explained in ordinary terms. Between two dim suns floated a structure so vast it seemed to defy sense. It was blacker than the space around it, drinking in light instead of reflecting it. No gravity waves, no energy signature. Nothing measurable escaped from it. It was a void within the void, a shape that should not exist and yet stood before them like a wound in the galaxy. The crew stared at their monitors, unable to look away. Some swore the thing was alive, that it pulsed with a rhythm too slow for machines to catch. Others whispered that it was not built, that it had always been there waiting. And then they saw movement. A small, battered vessel drifted from the shadow of the construct. It was an alien ship, one of the Vedras, though cracked and broken as if it had barely escaped from hell itself. Rourke ordered a docking, though half his crew begged him not to. He had to know. The survivor they brought aboard was a reptilian officer, his scales pale with terror. He barely had the strength to speak, but when he did, his words silenced the entire command deck. "It is awake," he hissed. "It has judged us. We begged, we offered, we surrendered, but nothing mattered. Silence is the only way to survive. Hide. Hide before it notices you too." Rourke leaned closer. "What is it? What hunts you?" The alien trembled, his voice cracking. "It listens. Always listening. And when you speak, it comes. We thought it wanted power, but it wanted only obedience. It erased our fleets, our cities, our voices. And now it waits. You should not be here, humans. You are too loud." Before they could question him further, the alien collapsed, lifeless. No wound, no poison, just as if his strength had been stolen away by fear itself. Marcus Hale received the report back on Horizon Station. The words sent a chill through him. He had been right all along. The silence was not an accident. It was deliberate. Something vast and ancient had decided the galaxy must kneel in fear, and yet, he could not understand why humans had not been silenced too. The more Marcus studied the strange distortions in the void, the more he felt that the silence was not aimed at them. It was as if this presence was testing humanity, waiting for a response. On Rourke's ship, the whispers grew louder. Every night the crew swore they heard voices in their sleep, soft, low sounds that carried no words but filled their hearts with dread. Some began refusing to sleep at all, afraid of what dreams might show them. And then, one evening, as the fleet circled the massive construct, the stars themselves shifted. Sensors screamed with warnings as a tremor rolled across the void. Not an explosion, not an attack, something deeper. It was as if the very fabric of space had quivered, like skin touched by an unseen hand. The tremor passed through every ship, rattling hulls and shaking bones. Lights flickered. Systems failed. For a long moment, all of them thought they were about to be destroyed. But just as suddenly as it came, the tremor faded, leaving only silence once more. On the bridge, one of Rourke's officers whispered, "It felt like a heartbeat." Marcus, watching from light years away, felt the same pulse in his monitors. The distortions he had tracked suddenly aligned into a single pattern, one too precise to ignore. It was not random, not natural. It was deliberate. A signal, but the signal was not in sound or light. It was in silence itself, pulses of emptiness arranged like words only the void could speak. Marcus translated as best he could, his hands shaking as he typed. The meaning was simple, terrifying, and undeniable. We are awake. The galaxy had not gone quiet because life had ended. It had gone quiet because something vast had opened its eyes, and all who feared it had fallen silent in obedience. But humans had never been good at obedience. And somewhere deep in the dark, whatever stirred seemed to know it. The tremor in the void was not forgotten. Even after it passed, leaving the fleets intact, Its weight clung to every mind like a shadow. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his exhausted crew whisper among themselves. They no longer needed orders to be quiet. Fear had already taught them silence, and yet for all their caution, humanity had never been built to hide. When the survivor of the Vedras had warned them to stay silent, Rourke's first thought was to obey. He was a soldier, trained to protect his people, not to gamble with them. But he also knew that Earth had survived centuries not by hiding, but by pushing forward against the odds. The galaxy had always underestimated humans, and perhaps that was why they were still standing, while others had vanished. Messages from Earth arrived daily. Politicians demanded answers. Citizens panicked, asking if their children were safe, if the silence would reach their skies next. Generals called for caution, for retreat, yet among them were voices urging defiance. "If this thing chooses who lives and who vanishes," one leader declared, "then we cannot wait for its judgment. We must face it on our own terms." It was Marcus Hale who tipped the scales. From Horizon Station, he sent his research to Earth Command. He had tracked the silent pulses, charting them across sectors, and the pattern was too exact to deny. "It is not random," he explained. "It speaks. The void itself speaks. The silence is its language. And for some reason, it expects us to answer." The thought shook everyone who heard it. The alien empires had bowed in fear, gone mute, surrendered to silence. Yet humans had done the opposite. They had kept talking, kept flying, kept sending signals into the dark. The question was no longer if they should retreat, but if they dared to speak louder. Captain Rourke called his officers together. His voice was low, steady, but every word carried weight. "We are at a crossroads. One path is retreat. We return to Earth, we wall ourselves in, and we hope this thing passes us by. The other path is risk. We step into its shadow, we look it in the eye, and we see if humanity's defiance matters. I will not order you into that choice blindly. But I tell you this, the galaxy has already chosen fear. If we join them, then the story of humanity ends here." His officers exchanged uneasy looks, but no one spoke against him. They had all felt the tremor. They had all seen the abandoned fleets, the dead worlds. If this force wanted obedience, then silence was nothing but a slow death. So they chose. Humanity would not hide. The mission was prepared in secret. A single fleet, led by Rourke, would enter the heart of the silent zone. They would approach the colossal construct and attempt communication, not with words but with defiance. Marcus Hale was brought aboard to guide the translation of the silent pulses, his expertise now invaluable. He warned them again and again, if we speak wrongly, we might bring death on us all. But if we refuse to speak at all, we are already dead. When the fleet entered the silent zone, every ship felt the weight press down on them. Communications flickered, lights dimmed, and for a moment even their thoughts seemed muffled. The colossal structure floated before them, unchanged, infinite in its stillness. It felt less like an object and more like a presence, an eye that did not blink. Marcus began transmitting carefully shaped pulses, arranged to mimic the silence's rhythm. For long minutes, nothing answered. The void stretched endlessly, suffocating. Then at last, the stars trembled again. The construct responded. The pulse that returned was slower, heavier, and it filled every system with dread. The message was clear even before Marcus translated it. "Why do you speak?" Marcus, trembling, crafted the reply. "Because we are human. We do not kneel to silence." The answer rolled back through the void like thunder. Systems shuddered, metal groaned, and some crew collapsed under the weight of it. All others obeyed, the silence said. "They chose fear. You choose noise. Why?" Rourke himself stepped forward, his voice firm though the comm systems struggled to carry it. "Because we live in struggle. We rise in defiance. If the galaxy fell silent to survive, then let it tremble again to remember us." For the first time, the silence paused. No tremor, no pulse, no whisper. Just emptiness, but an emptiness that felt alive, watching, deciding. Minutes passed like hours. The crew waited, sweat dripping, hearts pounding, unsure if they had sealed their own destruction. Then came the strangest thing of all. The void did not crush them. It did not erase them. Instead, the silence thinned. Stars that had seemed dim flickered brighter. The colossal construct pulsed once, faintly, like a heartbeat slowing down. And in the monitors, Marcus saw a new signal emerge, directed not at the galaxy, not at every species, but only at humanity. "You are different." The fleet stood frozen, unable to respond. What had spared them? What did it want? Rourke finally gave the only answer humanity had ever known. We are not different. We are human, and we will never be silent. The stars around them shivered once more, but this time it was not fear. It was acknowledgement. The galaxy had bowed, but humanity had made its choice, and whatever waited in the dark had chosen to listen. The fleet floated in the shadow of the colossal construct, every heart on board pounding with the weight of what had just happened. For the first time, the silence had spoken directly to humanity, not in death, not in destruction, but in recognition. The message, "You are different," echoed in their minds like a riddle without an answer. Captain Elias Rourke stood firm on the bridge, though his crew's eyes betrayed their fear. The galaxy had obeyed the silence, entire empires vanishing into mute obedience, but humanity had done what none dared. They had spoken back, and in that defiance something had shifted. Marcus Hale, pale and trembling, worked frantically at his console. "It is not just listening," he whispered. "It is measuring us. It is watching how we respond. This feels like a test." His words carried across the bridge, heavy with dread. If the silence was a test, then failure could mean the end not just of a fleet but of Earth itself. The crew braced as another tremor rolled through space, softer this time, like the echo of a vast being breathing slowly. The construct pulsed again, sending another wave of emptiness into their systems. The message was clearer now, the translation undeniable. All others feared. All others hid. "You refuse, why?" Rourke clenched his fists. He knew the wrong answer could doom them, yet to stay silent was not in his nature. "Because we are human," he said slowly. "We do not hide from the dark. We walk into it." The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. For long moments no one breathed. Then without warning the void shuddered. Stars flickered. Sensors screamed with impossible readings. Crew members clutched their heads, hearing a sound that was not sound at all. A low vibration deep inside their bones, almost like laughter. Marcus's voice shook as he translated. It is amused." Confusion swept the bridge. Amused? The idea chilled them more than anger or threat. If this thing was vast enough to silence empires, to bend galaxies into submission, what did it mean if it laughed at humanity? The construct pulsed again, and the message returned. "You are noise in my silence. You should be erased, and yet, you entertain me." The crew shivered as Marcus whispered the words aloud. Their lives, their very existence, reduced to entertainment for something older than stars. Rourke, however, saw something different. "If it entertains you," he said, raising his voice, "then remember us. We will not vanish like the others. We will fight, we will live, and even if the galaxy trembles, we will not bow." Another pause. Another heartbeat of the void. Then slowly, the stars around them brightened as though the silence had loosened its grip. Whole sectors that had been dark for weeks began to flicker with light again. Not life. No empires returned, no fleets reawakened, but the silence retreated. "It is leaving," Marcus whispered, awe in his eyes. Not gone, but stepping back. The construct did not move. It did not vanish. But its presence dimmed like an eye slowly closing. And in that final moment the last message came, burned into every system, etched into the minds of every human who stood in its shadow. "You are worthy to remain. Do not bore me." And then it was gone. Not destroyed, not defeated, simply silent again, as if slipping back into a dream. For days the fleet remained in orbit, waiting for another tremor, another test. None came. At last they returned to Earth with the truth. Humanity had not conquered the silence. Humanity had not beaten it back. They had only survived because they refused to surrender, because their defiance had sparked something in the darkness that even fear could not erase. On Earth, people listened to Rourke's report in stunned silence. Some celebrated, claiming humanity had been chosen. Others trembled, believing they lived only on borrowed time, surviving at the whim of something unfathomable. But deep down, all of them knew the truth. The galaxy had fallen quiet, and humanity had filled the void with noise. Marcus Hale, standing once more at Horizon Station, continued to track the signals. The silence was still out there, waiting, watching. Sometimes late at night he swore he could feel it smile, an ancient, endless curiosity fixed only on humanity. And perhaps that was the most terrifying truth of all. The alien empires had vanished because they had chosen fear. Humanity had survived because it had chosen defiance. But survival came with a price. the attention of something that had judged galaxies and found only humans worth watching. The stars trembled still, but now they trembled for a different reason. Not in fear of silence, but in fear of what humanity would do next. For the first time in countless ages, the void was not empty. It was listening. And somewhere deep in the darkness, it was smiling,